What happens when an NBA player loses it all? It's more common than you think. Despite big money endorsements, crazy sign-in bonuses, and salaries in the millions, it's estimated that around 65% of NBA players go broke within the first 5 years of retirement. From role players to legends of the game, some of the league's most exciting and well-paid players have blown through their millions and found themselves on the brink of losing everything they've worked for. But not every story is the same. While the outcome may be similar, players find all sorts of different ways to spend their money. And as you're about to find out, when it comes to assigning blame, the fingers go in every direction. So let's take a look at two players who ended up losing it all. Antoine Walker was a member of the iconic 1996 NBA draft class. With the 6th pick, Boston selected the Chicago native and signed him to a rookie contract of $5.5 million split over 3 years. Like a lot of young guys who get drafted, Walker had been given more money than he'd ever seen in his life, and he started to spend like crazy. He bought himself a house, some nice cars, and even got his mom a house of her own. But there was a problem. Antoine had forgotten about something very important: taxes. The $1.6 million he made in his rookie year actually looked a lot more like $800,000, and the youngster's excessive spending put him in debt before he'd even finished his first season. He took trips to Hawaii and Vegas and bought himself expensive jewelry such as custom watches, all while financially supporting his closest friends and family. Despite this, though, Walker shined as a rookie in Boston, making the all-rookie first team and leading the Celtics in scoring and rebounds that season. He signed a $7.8 million contract extension in 2000 and led the Celtics to an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, as well as earning himself a third All-Star selection. He eventually won a ring with Miami in 2006, and after his 17 years in the league, it is believed that he earned a total of $108 million. But just a few years after his retirement from the NBA, Antoine filed for bankruptcy. So what happened? It wasn't just a love of expensive things that crippled the power forward's wallet. Walker loved to gamble. The only problem? He wasn't very good. Walker was arrested in Las Vegas after he failed to pay $800,000 of gambling debts to 3 separate casinos. He eventually pled guilty to writing bad checks, but only under the condition that he wouldn't serve jail time and could instead declare bankruptcy. He admitted to Bloomberg that it was his ego and unwillingness to listen that caused him to eventually go broke. As any young, arrogant kid, I didn't want to listen to them. I kinda took things in my own manner and made sure I did what I wanted to do with my money. But Walker wasn't all bad decisions. He did try to be smart with his money, investing it in real estate, a relatively safe and compounding asset that was sure to yield some solid returns over the next few years. The only problem? Walker did this in 2007, a year before the US housing market collapsed. After the crash, Walker's assets devalued by around 90%, almost overnight, and bad luck continued to follow the ex-Celtic as Walker was soon after robbed at gunpoint while in his own home. The gunman stole over $200,000 in cash as well as countless pieces of jewelry and his custom watches. Because of his lavish spending, Walker had earned himself a whopping $12.7 million of debt and was forced to sell his entire real estate portfolio, including the house he'd got his mom in his rookie season, to try and settle the costs. Despite this, his combined assets were only able to pay off about $4.3 million of the debt, and things were so bad, Walker couldn't even cover the bankruptcy lawyer's fees. Walker even had to sell his most prized possession, the championship ring he'd won in Miami. Now at rock bottom, Walker looks back at this period of his life and says the hardest thing wasn't the debts, but how he felt abandoned by everybody around him. Since then, however, Walker has been able to turn his life around. He landed a job working as an analyst for ESPN and Fox Sports and is reported to have a net worth of around $3 million today. But while Walker blames nobody but himself, the same can't be said for every NBA star who lost everything. The bizarre bad boy of the NBA, Dennis Rodman, soon discovered that sometimes it's the people you're supposed to trust that let you down the most. Rodman was a key force in Chicago's late 90s success, winning the three-peat and Michael Jordan's admiration as he became the best rebounder in the league. While his rookie salary only clocked in at $75,000, his on-court defensive ability and the back-to-back championships he won with the Pistons quickly netted the Worm more than $2 million a year. During his 12 seasons in the NBA, he would lace up for the Lakers, Spurs, and the Mavericks, and reportedly made $27 million throughout his career. But 3 decades later, Rodman's net worth would be less than half, and the NBA millionaire would be forced to live a modest lifestyle. But why? You see, like his Bulls teammate, Rodman loved to gamble. He spent summers in Vegas and is reported to have lost $200,000 in one night playing craps. Rodman has admitted to purposely losing $35,000 just so I could feel normal. But as he soon found out, gambling was the least of his worries. He was once fined $25,000 for kicking a cameraman in the groin, and after charges were pressed on the NBA big man, Rodman was forced to pay an additional $200,000. And this was just the beginning. During the 1992 offseason, Rodman decided not to attend the preseason camp and was fined $68,000. Dennis "Bad Boy" Rodman was also fined $20,000 after he joined the WWE and received a similar fine for headbutting a referee who ejected him. Wonder where he learned to do that. But for all his fines and gambling debts, Rodman isn't actually to blame for losing it all. At least, not directly. You see, Rodman was the victim of a scam. During the mid-2000s, Rodman hired Peggy King to be his new financial manager. King was the CEO of King Management Group and promised her clients she could help them build generational wealth. The only problem was she was lying. She had faked her credentials as well as her experience and tricked Rodman into giving her full control over his finances. And it wasn't long before the red flags started to show up. After losing power in one of his Florida condos she'd helped him buy, Rodman asked his lawyer why the bills hadn't been paid. The lawyer told him that was Peggy's job. He also noticed he was behind on his life insurance payments and that he had failed to pay child support for a number of months, resulting in a total of $800,000 in missing payments. King wouldn't even let Rodman have a debit card. Anytime Rodman complained, she would cite his unpredictable behavior as a reason why he wasn't allowed to have control over his finances. As it turns out, King was stealing from Rodman, embezzling the funds into her own personal account, all while she claimed to be helping the 2-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year. But King got greedy, and after Rodman noticed a charge to Victoria's Secret had been made without his consent, he fired King and accused her of fraud. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and Rodman was awarded $1.2 million in damages, a fraction of what she had taken from him. Today, the Worm's net worth stands at a reasonable $1 million, and while it's far from his NBA salary of the past, Rodman has been able to maintain a comfortable standard of living. Despite losing it all, both Walker and Rodman showed that it is possible to come back from the brink. Walker now hosts a series of financial literacy talks, helping athletes deal with their new income, and even published a book on the subject. While Rodman's just doing, Rodman stuff. But he's managed to stay out of trouble, and we honestly just hope it stays that way.